Call to order, planning and zoning. Time is 5:30 PM on the 25th of March, 2024. Before we start the public hearings, are there any public comments? There are no public comments. We will start with the public hearings. Public hearing, first one, or actually the only one. Public hearing to obtain citizen views and comments regarding rezone 2024-0301. A rezoning application to allow the applicant, Ruben Lozoya, to establish a recognized mobile home park on the subject property. The property in question is located at 708 South Cactus Street. It is legally described as 1.52 acres, more or less, being the south part of a 3-acre tract of land, described as the south 3.0 acres of the west half, W2 of Block 2, in volume 36, page 410, official public records. Means addition subdivision A to the city of Alpine, Brewster County, Texas, as per plat on file, envelope number 63. Plat and map records are on file with the office of the county clerk of Brewster County, Texas. The property ID of the subject property is 11311. The record property of owner is Ruben Lozoya. The current zoning of the property is R4 Mobile Home District. The zoning classification, if the zoning is approved, would be C1A Neighborhood Commercial District. Are there any public comments and public hearings? Anybody want to you get 3 minutes to make your case? Okay, we have none. City Secretary, can you confirm that we have a quorum?
Yes, we do have a quorum present.
We have a quorum. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous board meeting?
May I speak for a second? Ask some questions, or am I not allowed? After the motion? Okay.
After the motion. So do we have a motion?
I will.
Do we have a second? Okay. Go ahead.
So it's already an R4 mobile home district.
No.
Not
This
that
is
yet.
the minutes from
This
last,
is
the
minutes
last.
from
meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Minutes from the last
I'm
meeting.
sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I read them. Yes, I second. I approve.
You just take a vote.
Take a vote to approve. I'll vote
All in favor?
aye, on favor.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we get into discussion items. Discussion item A, discussion regarding Chapter 9 annexation, discuss zoning and ward designations upon annexation. Is Megan here?
No, but I can read.
Okay.
There she is.
Oh, mention your name and.
I seem to hear everything that goes on in this building. Your voices. Honorable Commission, I added this item to the agenda tonight. We've had a few items come up in regards to annexation that I'd like us to look at and move forward with making some possible changes. I hope this is the item we're on. Okay.
Yeah, we're on page 1 of 1 and package here.
So
Chapter 9.
Gio and I, over the course of our new positions, have learned a lot of things that have been done incorrectly, unfortunately, in the past, which has made the current really hard for us. One of the things that just recently came up with is when a property is annexed, we don't have anything formal that says what ward it should belong to. That's not always an issue, especially when a property is annexed within a certain area of town. But unfortunately, we had a case where a property was annexed in 2010. It was a divided split with which wards it was put into, but nothing was recorded, I would say legally or appropriately to determine that. So it becomes a he said, she said, and an issue for elections, an issue for people who want to run for different wards. Am I in ward 2, 3, 4, 5? So one of the things that we considered was updating our annexation policy or ordinance to include that when a property gets annexed, that it also includes what ward it will be annexed into. Like I said, it's not usually an issue, especially when it's right smack dab in the middle. the Dollar General on the north side of town. It's in that ward. Unfortunately, the property that was annexed, going out towards Marfa, they split it between two different wards, but nothing was documented. So moving forward, we wanted to try to make an amendment to update the annexation policy to include when you guys review an annexation, that it also includes what ward that they're gonna be put into. The other item that we wanted to discuss with the annexation policy is it currently states that anyone who gets annexed into the city limits is automatically annexed as an R1. If I was a business owner and I wanted to buy property, I wouldn't want it to be annexed to an R1. I'd want it to be annexed as a commercial property if that's the direction I was going. Only because I don't know if you approve my annexation, if down the road you'll approve the rezone. So we would like to update the ordinance to include information regarding that if a property is to be zoned or annexed, that we word it so that the zoning is flexible. Like I said, we haven't really had this issue in the past, but we've had more and more properties. We just had Skyway Gardens come up last year, to be annexed into the city limits. And please keep in mind, and for the public as well, we don't really have very many within our city limits. Usually we want to annex with on the outskirts of our city limits. But would like to change the wording that when we do annex a property into the city limits, that we allow it to be annexed at the appropriate zone. So that they're not being annexed and then having to come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission to rezone to be a commercial property. Currently, it reads that it will be zoned an R1. But obviously that's not always going to be the case. So this is just for discussion to get it on your radar that we are looking at updating the annexation part of it to allow for one, the distinguishment of the ward in which the property is to be located. And then two, to allow for the flexibility or the open ticket for the zoning so that when they do request to be annexed, it automatically is zoned correctly.
Okay, question for you. Two questions, actually. It seems to me that zoning R1 ties your hands. So, but when you annex property, shouldn't there be language saying that this is gonna be annexed to for election purposes, a zone that is contiguous to in one way or the other, or a new zone, perhaps?
So it could be either or.
Okay.
That's where we want some of the discussion and to have some of that flexibility. Like I said, most of our properties are gonna be zoned on the outskirts. Currently, that's a lot of R4, which would allow like a CO buffer and things like that. But the way our ordinance is written, there's no buffer, it's R1. We've been fortunate with the dollar store that it was already in a commercial zone. So it was put in as a commercial, so that doesn't come in as an R1 in the
Right.
spot zoning, that kind of thing. But would like that conversation and that flexibility so that when people are looking at becoming part of the city, that they're not automatically, okay, I'm gonna buy this property, I'm gonna annex it R1, because I know that's what the current ordinance says, and then down the road, I have to go back and rezone. Because to me, as an owner, if I'm gonna buy property, I wanna make sure I'm gonna be able to do what I need to from the beginning. Because commissions change, councils change, we wanna make sure that we open it up so that we can grow and we give them that ability.
So what's your timeline for coming up with the new language?
Oh, that's gonna be the next meeting.
That's me.
Drop right here. No, like I said, what we try to typically do, just so you guys understand as well, is we always try to, if it's an item that has to go before a board or commission, it always starts off as a discussion. Cause you could come back and say, no way, leave it as is, and then I'm done. We have an open discussion. Then we put the draft together to present to you guys to look at. You make recommendations, we go back and forth. It may need to go to another meeting. Once we get the input from you guys and we can move forward, then it goes to our counsel and our attorneys for a review. And then it may be another week or two before it actually goes to council as a first reading. So we try to get as many eyes on it before we make a change.
So to me, are you,
Yeah, yeah.
basically, you're just sort of streamlining the whole process, more or less.
We're
to what
make-
it should be to begin with, rather than going back and forth and back and forth, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, we're just putting in the concrete information, so it doesn't matter who's sitting in what seat or what direction. Anyone who moves forward will know, oh, I gotta put this towards a ward. Oh, it can be zoned this way. We're learning a little bit the hard way with, why didn't they do it this way? But it's just because when you follow the ordinances, they're not always clear.
I have a question. So I know you're trying to make it easy for future generations, like you said, we change all the time, so it is writing already would be in files. But my question is, if they wanted to change the R1, you would say, no, this is in stone, this is what it is, you cannot change it, don't come to the planning, it's already this.
So that would be part of the annexation. So if you didn't want to change the zone or you didn't want to consider it, you don't have to approve the annexation.
Okay.
But this is just to open it up so that even if they could want to be R1, they could be one R2. But this is really to open it up because when we look at what properties are available, most of it's going to be the outskirts and it's going to be commercial. Right now, we're having commercial people kind of jump
Yes.
through hoops
Yeah.
and we don't want to do that. Economic development.
Yes,
We want to be able to encourage them that if I come and buy a property and the city's willing to annex it, the services are available, that I don't have to jump through that second hoop to make sure it's zoned correctly.
So in your description or your presentation, you said that we annex it as the appropriate zone. Do you have any thoughts or guidelines on how we determine appropriate?
So usually when we get an annexation, they're gonna tell us what type of business they're doing. So when Skyway Gardens, they came in and it's gonna be a multifamily setup. So we automatically knew it's not gonna be an R1. So we knew that we needed to zone it correctly. When Dollar Store came in and they wanted that particular area, we knew it wasn't gonna be an R1. So you're gonna know when they apply for the annexation, what type of zone. And it also will give you kind of the idea. We have very few pockets within the city limits that aren't annexed. They're just not part of the city, but they are so rare. Them coming in and wanting to be an M1 in an area of
That was my
R1,
thought,
yeah,
right
it's not gonna happen.
But if they're already in M1,
If then they're within the city limits, 90% of it's gonna be on the railroad
right,
tracks.
I understand, but let's assume they're just outside our ETJ. So,
They would
they-
have to follow the M1 ordinance. And remember, you guys
Yeah, we
just
just did the M1
updated that to make it very specific what can be there.
so an auto mechanic shop would be zoned as an auto mechanic shop. It'd be-
Yeah, or the commercial that it falls under.
All
But
right,
remember, it's only for those who are trying to be annexed into the city.
all right. And then do we allow livestock in the city limits?
Yes, but you have to have a permit and that's a whole process through our animal control and through. Council.
So as we move further toward Marathon and annex Saul Ross's livestock barn and all of that, what zone would that be?
So they're a government, so it doesn't really matter where they fall.
They get to do whatever
Okay.
they want.
Yeah,
So their taxes.
the state's gonna come back and say,
Oh, that's-
nope,
Sorry.
Yeah, so they're above the law.
yes, and I've tried to go after some payment in lieu of taxes for them as well, but the state regulates all
So
that.
this is just discussion
This is
item
just-
for our future
yes.
enlightenment. Uh,
So ideally, the next meeting, we would come back with a draft ordinance that shows those updates. That way you could look at the specific language and verbiage that we're utilizing to show how we'd like to move forward. You could agree, disagree, make recommendations, and then we would update accordingly, come back for one last review, and then it would proceed to council.
But tonight, we don't even need to vote on it. We
Nope,
we
just
discuss a
explain.
heads up.
We don't.
Okay.
Do your draft.
Just wanted you to know that we've got other things going on.
Nothing's going on. Appreciate it, Megan.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, good.
If you do need me, I really am just down the hall.
Well, you might stick around.
Can I do it by Zoom?
You can do it by Zoom, yes, ma'am.
I do pay attention. I'm working on an RFP. I'd like to finish.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you, guys.
Okay, discussion item B. Discuss making a recommendation to city council to update chapter 18. Building and building regulation, article 9, dangerous buildings. Include updates to the criteria for substandard buildings. This is Commissioner Fielder. Who's gonna start the discussion here. So go ahead.
So do we need to put pictures on the screens, Gio, or just right here? Okay, so the Lobo Bar, I think I also got their sign.
First read your, or what's your, give us
Read this.
give us the beginning first.
Read
What
this.
are we doing?
Right now, I'm just trying to, Darren had asked me what my point is. For me, right now, it's show and ask. I'm new, I'm trying to learn. I see things that don't make sense to me based on my reading and understanding of the codes and ordinances. So part of the reason for this is to understand.
Okay, so, but remember, this is discussion, so you want,
Okay, so again,
what are we
so
discussing?
you want me to read something? Read this, read what?
Sure,
What
yeah,
prompted you to do
Yeah.
this?
No, read letter B.
yeah, right
That's
there.
not
Right,
show.
okay.
Read letter B and then begin your discussion.
Discuss making recommendations, but you read it, to the city council to update chapter 18, buildings and building regulations, article 11, dangerous buildings, including updates to the criteria for substandard buildings.
And then
Okay, so. And thank you for sharing some other stuff with me, Jessica. So I took a picture of the Lobo Bar. This is a piece of plywood that's just propped up inside the window. And a broken portion of the window is actually to the left of the plywood. So A, I don't think the plywood is fastened, and B, it's not covering the broken part of the window, because I don't know, maybe what's propping it up wouldn't support it over where it's broken. So, does that or does that not comply?
Hello, I just want to see you when I'm talking to you.
There you go.
I appreciate, your due diligence on this. However, there is a process that should be followed when there
And
are issues.
it's that process
So-
I'm trying to
Let her
learn.
finish.
Planning and zoning discussions is not the first process. It would be a complaint form with code enforcement so that we could go ahead and investigate, contact the owners, and more than 9 times out of 10, they're gonna fix it. So I invite you to come over. We can fill out complaint forms. I could bring them to you if you'd like. I'm always on the field and take it from there. Because the ordinances are fine the way they are. We follow those, but obviously there's just 2 of us. And so if there's a complaint, we legitimately will same day go ahead and investigate and start the
Okay.
notice process.
So fine as they are, look at the second picture. That's an awning.
Yes.
So we are working with the owner on that property already.
So you're already looking at that. But these properties, I've lived here 4 years, February. These properties have not changed in 4 years. That's why I'm trying to understand how this works. After 4 years, nothing has happened.
Okay, we seem to be getting down to specifics before we get into anything general here. I'm not sure where we're going.
Again, for me, it's the learning process.
Okay, so you're at,
And if you want, I can come sit down with you directly and learn. So, and again, the next picture, this, I believe, Jessica, this was done in accordance with your attachment that you attached to the ordinance about how the building should be secured. And then I took this next picture, just because Tom brought it up. And I guess because Tom brought it up and because we discussed it, I was walking by there and somebody was over there trying to prop things up and make it look a little better. So
was it the owner?
I have no idea who they were.
We never talked to him.
Sometimes the wind blows it down, they go through and try to fix it.
Okay, may I interject?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we have a process. You see a complaint, reach out to code enforcement so that they can work on it. And this is more of a building and standards issue. They should be looking at that. Zoning and planning is more planning for the future
For the
growth
future.
and expansion of Alpine. Okay,
Okay.
Or revamping the zoning so that it complies, they can do their job, if that makes sense.
right.
Right?
Mhm.
Okay.
So this Article 9, Article 11, I mean, dangerous buildings.
It's more of a building and standards.
It's more of a building and standards, and I got called away and I wasn't able to send in all of the stuff. So in this particular standard, you talk about, and in the very first paragraph, you say abatement is repairing, removing, or demolishing a structure. But then about 2/3 of the way in, well, here it is, item C, page 3. see under 18-284, a structure is boarded up, fenced, or secured. So once that occurs, once a building is secured, are we finished until it falls down?
It appears so.
Well, that
Chair?
was, is that not the article here, dangerous buildings?
That's building.
Yeah,
and-
but you have to talk to
But you
them.
have to go through the process. You can't discuss it anymore unless you file the complaint with them, and then they can follow up. on it. So you
But-
gotta go
but
through the
Things
procedure.
like
to
that
do so.
belong in building and standards committee, not zoning and planning. So we need to move on past this.
Okay, okay, all
I
right.
was trying to understand what the highlights were, but we'll move on from that. And back to the article. The discussion is to make a recommendation to city council. I don't think that applies here.
According to Catherine, I agree. She said
So,
that's a different commission.
so yeah, making a recommendation to city council, is that something we have to vote on?
No.
It's just a discussion, but I don't think that applies.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's move on to C. Discuss, and well, you can read it again if you want to.
Discuss making a recommendation to city council to update chapter 78 signs to the Alpine Code of Ordinances, including updates to the criteria for signs within the city. Guy Fielder, Commissioner.
And then you had questions on this too?
There's two pictures, but if I may, a little preface of why I'm driving in on this. I've had several conversations with Abby when she was still on planning and zoning about the condition of the signs. And Megan mentioned the economic development and what we're trying to do there. And
Can I interject before you go further? We've had this conversation previously on the signs. In fact, I left the thick notes with Abby and Gio, and I could not attend that meeting. I was having my first granddaughter, so I was gone. But I'm not sure what happened, but there was a file with all pictures in it and it got tabled. But there are some corrections within the signing here that needs to be addressed due to the new dark skies, because they're in conflict with the dark skies ruling, that they brought down, and it's never been corrected, but you go forward. I'm just gonna let you know, there has been some previous conversation on
so
this.
But I think what happens, the city picked this up and they're working on it.
I don't know if the city's still working
I
on it or
don't know
not.
that
Have you
anyone's
heard
working
anything
on
about it? I don't think
I'm
so. I
currently
think it got
working on the
tabled.
sign work.
Need to talk
Are
to
you?
these ladies, who are the ones that are in charge.
Yep.
Cause I turned all mine in and we never heard back from.
There's
them.
quite a few things that have come up in our department when it comes to the sign ordinance. One is the issue with the sandwich boards. They are all over town. We don't really have any regulations on how many you can have and
Oh, that's true.
yeah, so that's one of the issues that we have. So that's one of the things that I'm adding into the ordinance and editing. Also billboards have came up and we really don't have any designation in what zone they can and cannot be in. So that's one of the things that I'm working on. The dilapidated buildings and the dark skies, the edits that you had, those need to be added in. There's
In the
been-
dark skies, in that same one, I also made recommendations for bringing the signing down, which would include billboard signing. And I even turned in the size. I measured them out. I recommended monument size signs with the square footage and I even had I went with my little tape measure to find the perfect one, said they really need to be here and not any bigger than this. So that would fall into the billboards because it would take those out of the equation because of dark skies.
I think Jessica might have your package.
Maybe
I'm
that's
not-
where it
I'm not
went.
sure.
I know I had to
have
turn
a
it
lot
in
of
at 11.
emails from the signing. I know that there were some emails sent to like a lot of the signages that they had issues
Those
with.
were probably.
And we
not,
went
yeah.
and spoke with the owners and started process with trying to get them to comply with at least getting them up to date or removing what was there if it was dangerous. So our department has been working with the owners on a lot of that, like the awning that you saw. You're more than welcome to ask for a public information request, but we are working with the owner on that.
That does fall under signing.
Yeah,
more than I think.
there's been some issues with.
And that's our charge, is to help you
Yeah.
with that.
Well,
And
it-
so if there's any
Work with you on
recommendation,
that.
It gets expensive when you're talking about trying to either remove or repair the signs, you know, and so, and what we were talking about before was just helping the owners that have signs in disrepair, figure out what to do. If they're not in a position to really bring them up to standard, then I even had the number of a guy who was willing to go for free just to take off the metal, you know, to cut them down for the owners and remove them for them. I mean, he was willing to do that if we just turned over the list to him once we got to
we
that
can't
point.
really recommend anybody like that.
Well, he can go talk to them about doing it just for the scrap metal, which would be helpful for them because you don't want to just penalize them and say, you got to do this. But the other was, oh shoot, it just went over my head. There was another point to that, but for some reason it was
Size.
the size. Yeah, oh, going forward, thank you, was that the monument signs would only apply to new business coming into the area going forward. Does that make sense? If you already had something like this and it grandfathered back, just keep it
And it
up
was in good shape.
to, yeah, to standard. But if you didn't, then going forward and you were a Dollar General or whatever, or whoever that came in, do a monument style. And I even went around town because some of the pushback I heard was that, the smaller businesses like mom and pop and, you know, locally owned, that would get expensive for them. But oddly enough, what I did was I took pictures of many of the small businesses around town that had signs, and most of them were already in compliance with what we wanted. They can't afford to put them up there anyway, so they have usually the billboard size, lower profile signs. So it was not a big deal at the time. It was just, it kind of got lost in the shuffle. But if you know, I feel free to sit and talk to you about it. I just didn't know you were working on it. That's great. Thank you.
Yes, well, we've been working on a lot of things, but that is one that I've been editing for a while. Just when things come up in, you know, complaints and things like that, then you see issues with the ordinance because we have no way of enforcing anything that's not backed up by our ordinance. So
But
if it's not there, it goes on the list of
Gonna have to
future.
do something with it. And,
Yeah,
and,
don't
and it just looks terrible coming into town when you see all of them. So I appreciate you working
Well,
on
the
it. Thank
two
you.
pictures here, in my reading of the ordinances, I have no doubt in my mind that these are out of compliance. And taking them down would be backed up by the ordinance.
This is prescription shop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the prescription shop. And again,
They had a sign up, maybe they're changing it out. I don't know.
No,
No,
it's been gone for a while.
it's been
now.
gone. This is several years.
I
that
thought
it's
they
been
went out
that
of
way.
business, honestly.
I don't
The
know.
sign was
But
gone.
the Highland one definitely needs to
Yeah.
be, the broken pieces need to come out of there. But there's nothing in the ordinance that says that you can't have an empty frame. There's nothing wrong with an empty frame of a sign. It's not, unless it's gonna fall over, it's gonna
Or
hurt
that's
somebody.
natural hazard or
But then
something like that.
we have then several empty frames around town that just look unsightly.
Yeah,
So we've
but
got to
also
figure out
on
a
a-
way to address that.
I understand that it probably doesn't look good, but we also have a lot of vacant commercial buildings. So if I was to come into this building and there was already a pole there in a frame and I just had to put my sign in there, it's gonna be a lot cheaper than making somebody remove that pole infrastructure and having them put a new one up. So there's nothing wrong with that structure unless it's gonna,
Well, going forward with dark skies, it's gonna be a problem.
not if it's not illuminated from the inside.
Why wouldn't we going forward with new businesses coming in, try to have them bring that profile down to help the aesthetics of town?
Nice.
Sure.
If you could just approach the podium, you know.
I'd just like to give an example of something that's happened. So I believe,
Go ahead and introduce yourself. first.
I'm sorry, Lori Griffin,
Hi, Lori.
just a citizen, resident of Alpine in your ward and my ward 4. So I noted, let's give I'll give an example of where this probably applies. And I hope I don't misspeak, but Sarah Bowles building is currently being remodeled. I understand that Bob Ward will be moving to that. I think that's public knowledge. There is old sign you're talking about.
Which building is Sarah Bowes? I'm not.
That
sure.
would be City Drive.
Okay, thank you.
There's
That's right.
old
Oh,
signage
okay.
there, for example.
Yeah.
One of the things whenever I spoke with her, because I was trying desperately to get that building, was I was wanting to do it partly for that sign. Because you could easily put up a sign as a business to get people to come in. Never occurred to me I wouldn't want to light it. But it is certainly grandfathered into that building. It's also part of that building's history. One of the things that I had talked to her about was putting a line on it about it historically, what has been in the past to honor that history and add a new sign to it. So I'm not getting that building, so it doesn't, but if I was getting that building, I just want you to understand how important that is and how much cost and how good it is for the environment in the city not to rip up the pavement and the road and how dangerous it would be and how an intrusion of traffic that would be if you had to take it down or to put it up. So those signs that are there, I mean, should be left grandfathered. I mean, I don't own the building, but I'll speak to her. I think I'm good enough friends with that. But as a person who would wanted to rent that, it was one of the reasons why I wanted to rent it.
Oh, thank you for your.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, again, going back to the EDC, Darren, you can jump in here if you'd like. We are trying to attract businesses. And there's not anybody going to be able to drive into town that's not going to come in from Marathon or Marfa or Fort Davis that are not going to see signs that look like this, are not going to see buildings that are plywooded up. If you were someone that was being courted to bring a business to this town, and your first impression of this town were these businesses and these structures and these things, would you really think about coming here? These are all signs of urban decay.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I would say.
And part of the reason I brought it up, just to get it out there and then we can move on. Nothing happens without a champion. And one of the things I was going to do is say, I would be happy to champion this. I will work with these business owners. And like you said, if we take them down, we're not going to dig them up. We're going to cut them out down at the pavement.
Yeah, they go to the
They
pavement.
just grind it off at the pavement. That's it. The scrap value, for example, the awning is probably aluminum. Aluminum has value. I think we could find someone to take these down and would take them down for the scrap value.
I had found that person. I had the number.
I agree, though, somebody brought it up. We would need, and I'm happy to pay a lawyer to write it, we would need a release of liability for the owner so that the owner doesn't feel like if something goes wrong when the signs come
Well,
down.
I think we're getting a little bit out of bounds of the planning and zoning right now and trying to get into the why we hire city people to work on it.
Right, and
They are working on it. So I think that's what we need to do is
well, I'm
Just help
70
them,
years
help them,
old.
help
I'd
them.
like to live long enough to see a result.
Well, in order,
Well-
like, again, in order for that to happen, these complaints need to be brought to our attention. So we can
You
do-
have to have a complaint before you can.
No,
act.
no, but signs as far as code enforcement is not the priority. And the reason being is there is no hazard to anybody's health with that. There's no fire hazard as far as like weeds are concerned. Those are more higher priority because what you're discussing is just a matter of your opinion on how terrible it may look. That's not I mean, trust me, I get it. I don't like a lot of the way things look in outline, but my job is to make sure that the health and hazards are being upheld before anything else. So if there's a complaint, I have to go off my priority list. If there's a complaint about signs, then it becomes a priority. Just like there was a complaint that a business was blocking the entire sidewalk. We immediately respond because he said, I almost got into a car accident. That is a hazard. And that A-frame sign was in fact blocking the view for any vehicle. It's a hazard for anybody in a wheelchair. If any complaint will become a priority. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. And I just have one final question. I promise I'll hush for a minute. So we talk a lot about public health, safety, welfare, sanitation, things like that. But in all the other communities that I've lived in, another almost equally important thing is property value. When the house next door is boarded up and there's a fence around it, but the fence is falling down and the roof is caving in, that is not helping my property value. Is property value not even a consideration in any of this?
Not at the moment, but I think that one of the things we're charged with, of course, is to help the city with this, so I think we need to talk to the city and work with the city, and right now, as far as,
Resolution, we've
Right.
gotta work through it.
as
And
far as,
I
as far
run
as,
around all day long with every inspection you want me to do. I don't like being in the office. So I
So-
promise you,
Just tell her.
I will be out there in the car doing whatever you want me to do and get some action done to make those changes. But it needs to be brought to my attention first if it's something that already isn't.
So Commissioner Fielder, complaint about properties like that. And then that is something that they have to investigate because it
Right.
goes to priority. Otherwise, it's just, it's not even on their radar. They have too many other things to look at. But when you make a complaint, it becomes
then they have to
priority.
respond.
And then the boarded up building with the falling down fence, the boarded up house with the roof caving in, that's building and standards.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, that's-
yes, their property value, safety, all of that, because building and standards just demolished a home like that. That's under their purview.
I
yes.
have, I have just in this month alone, about 20 dangerous building notices that have gone out. I'm out there.
As a member, as
We can only,
a,
well, we can only get to a certain point with code enforcement because the city only has so much money to demolish it.
Right.
We don't even have anything in the budget.
and that
for
was,
this year.
that was gonna be
So
my question.
We have to work with the homeowners and the property owners to try to convince them that this is, and we have to go to court and we give them citations and they get tickets and they get fined. But we can only keep doing that process because we have no money to take that house down. So we keep doing our job, but really the city doesn't have the money to go and remove that house right now.
And then I would ask, why bother if we don't have the money? Because that's gonna be the end
Because there are
result.
gonna be people that comply. I've had 3 people demolish horrible carports that were a dangerous building, in fact, and they're gone now. It usually with the communication from me, it will get done
We
more
had,
likely.
we had a whole
than
half a
not.
block of the south side of town.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I do. I work in quadrants as
Yeah.
well, because I don't want to be blamed for picking on a certain area. So I bounce back and forth. I will never work the same area the same day. I mean, the same area multiple times in a week. I have to bounce around to keep things an even keel.
So Megan, I was gonna ask, isn't the homeowner the one that has to pay for the demolition, or we can put a lien on their property?
So both. So they have 45 days to demolish the property. If they don't demolish it within the 45 days, the city does demolish it on their behalf. We do have money in this year's budget. And we plan accordingly based on if it goes through a process. The city didn't do that before. Well, now I can do that. So if there's houses coming up or properties coming up to be demolished, then we plan accordingly. We planned for this year, we demolished, we have enough to demolish one more. It averages 10 to 15,000 property, depending on the size. But after the 45 days, the city goes in and demolishes it. We can scrap anything, we'll scrap it. And then we do put a lien on the property. So if it was to be sold, the city's lien should be fulfilled first. Although that's not always the case, it is reminded when they sell the property that we do have the lien and we do file it with the county.
That answered my question. So it is a line item in the budget.
Yes, it's under, building and standards.
Yeah.
We budgeted 25 for this.
The other thing I would add, because I've done this myself, a lot of these old properties actually have some salvage value. Weathered wood is valuable. Antique brick is valuable. The property that was recently torn down had what I would think would be a pretty valuable amount of rock.
So the rock was something that was taken into consideration. It wasn't something that the city could use, so we're not in the rock building business. But the individual who did demolish it, did offer it to, I believe, some of his friends, and then whatever he didn't want, he took to the landfill.
Right, but my point being, if we could sell it, it would lower the cost to the city of the demolition portion of it.
If we plan accordingly, we could process the demolishment where we actually section it off and phase it. And unfortunately, in this event, we wanted it done.
Right.
We wanted it done. It was originally ordered to be demolished in 2018, and the city never did anything. So we had to do the whole process again. The individuals in the area we're tired of waiting. So we didn't phase it, we didn't plan it, we just said, move it out.
Thank you.
Okay, back to C, where it says discuss making a recommendation to the city council. I think that's now void. We do not need to make any recommendation to the city council.
Well, I add one thing. It was tabled because you weren't at the meeting,
Right,
so it was just never went anywhere. It never got put back on.
okay, thank you.
See, okay, before we do item D, let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break.
Days.
But
So
Donna put me
it's-
back in remote cutting, so I have to walk this business to us, and they want remote cutting.
All right, let's get back to work here.
I will not complain about that.
Isn't that what it's supposed to be on?
Yeah, you will be.
Oh,
Yeah, not yet, not next meeting, we have to approve.
Oh, okay, I was like.
Okay, discussion item D. Jessica, do you want to read that?
Sure. Discussion regarding making a proposed recommendation to the city council to update to appendix C zoning to the Alpine Code of Ordinances, particularly removing the requirement that city council and planning and zoning commission may initiate a spot zoning request. So the reason I'm bringing this up, is mainly because it's been something that's happening a lot right now. And my main concern is that the zoning map that we have is already out of date, and we already see a lot of spot zoning in it. And in order for us to see a future plan, a growth plan inside city limits, and actually make it look the way that we want it to look without all of these spot zonings, with commercial businesses inside residentials that aren't benefiting those residents, we're gonna have a big mess in the future. And we don't have a comprehensive plan right now. I don't know if you guys understand what a comprehensive plan is. But pretty much we have a zoning map right now that we're getting updated. I don't know where it's at in the updates. Megan might have more information on
It's
that.
almost done.
It's almost done, okay. But the one we currently in our office are working off of is a 2013 map. And so it's over a decade old. And inside that map, we already have multiple spot zonings that are issues. And so going forward for our commission to be able to put together a comprehensive plan would be the future view or vision of Alpine. So we can see what we have, and then you make a carbon copy and say, this is what we want it to look like. And since we don't have a comprehensive plan, it's really detrimental for us to keep doing these spot zonings. And so having them put in for no reason other than the request of the residents makes it so that it's gonna go so far away from us to be able to correct it with all of these little spot zones inside of areas that they shouldn't be.
We do have that long-term plan, but that's not specific enough, I don't think. But the other thing is spot zoning in the state of Texas is illegal, so we can't do that. That's, that we're prohibited from doing that. And that is probably something, if we do find spot zoning, that might be something we're gonna have to correct once we get the new map.
Well,
Or
the
at least work on it.
The problem that we're having is the way the ordinance is written. So in section 21. .02,
Mhm.
it says the boundaries of the districts proposed in the zoning application may be non-contiguous if the zoning is initiated by council or planning and zoning commission. This was updated in 2016, and I don't know why, because it's against spot zoning rules, and I mean, I don't even know why it even exists.
State law always.
Super
It's
easy.
easy.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it needs to be
Doesn't matter what it
removed.
says.
And so I would say we need to take that out. And I know this is just a discussion right
It's a
now,
discussion, yeah.
but I think that should definitely not be in there.
Question.
I want to take exception to what you said because someone included some other definitions and stuff in part of our packet. And it says spot zoning is illegal in Texas when one can prove it's arbitrary, unreasonable, discriminatory, and does not substantially relate to the public's health, safety, morals, or general welfare. So I see that as a loophole or an opportunity for spot zoning.
Yes,
So,
I agree with you.
If it's for health and welfare.
well, are the benefit of the community.
But yeah, so like, for example, in a residential area, you would see a school put there. Or, that would make sense, or there's some other zonings that you
A
could. put in
daycare or
A
something like that.
daycare or
in the
something like
middle
that,
of
and
something.
right now in our ordinance, you just need a special use, conditional use permit, you wouldn't have to rezone it because we've already made that loophole available.
Well, and if we can stay specific on this topic, it's already zoned R4. R4 is.
Wait,
Well,
no.
we're talking just about this
We're
one.
not even talking about that yet.
And
Oh, is that a separate?
That's a whole
Yeah.
other thing.
Sorry.
We're gonna see a lot of them though, so I just want to bring it up.
All right, we're just talking about
Go
that
ahead.
one
Go ahead, babe.
item
So-
in the,
Guy is technically correct, spot zoning is
kind of illegal. There are basically 4 questions that a council member has to ask themselves or council has to ask themselves in order to zone outside of what would be contiguous. Yes, our policy is currently, our ordinance is currently written that if a council member brings it, then it can be allowed. But any type of zoning does have there's a term for it, a test, a question that you have to ask. It is not recommended by the state of Texas to spot zone because it is seen as favoritism. You're doing it for some person, something. But council has the ability to make the decision if that's the direction they're gonna go, if they answer those questions. You guys kind of mentioned it as far as,
Public health.
is it a benefit to the
Safety.
community? Is housing a benefit to the community? Anyone's gonna tell you yes. Is certain businesses a benefit to the community? Businesses in period are gonna be a benefit to our community right now. So yes, it's illegal, but at the same time, the state does allow for exceptions. If you can answer their specific guidelines and questions to make sure that it doesn't specifically show you're doing it for, a budget.
But how is that approved? If spot zoning is requested,
Council can approve it.
council,
We send it to council.
Council automatically has to make the decision on any type of zoning.
right,
So if someone, currently the way our ordinance is written, it allows for one contiguous, I can come in and say, hey, I want to rezone my property. It falls within the guidelines of the city recommendations. Council can come in and bypass it kind of and say, hey, I want to rezone. I want to rezone because this is the benefit to the community.
so the city council would not have to go through planning and zoning.
Way we have it set up, yes, they do. They can initiate
They
it.
go through planning and zoning, then it's sent to city council.
But the way that it's worded right now, they don't have to go through planning and zoning?
Yeah.
No,
No,
the
they
way it's
do.
worded
They
right
do.
now is council can go through planning and zoning to tell you, I want to have this property rezoned and it's not contiguous.
Okay,
I think what Jessica's saying is that in this, they want to remove the council and planning and zoning can initiate the spot zoning
Right,
request.
so you
So
can't go
right now,
backwards on it,
someone
you
can
just.
go to their council member and say, I want you to do this for
Right.
me,
Mhm.
and then they can initiate that request.
You wanna come up to the podium?
No.
No, there's.
This is just discussion,
Yeah.
this isn't part of the action. item.
Oh,
And
right.
that-
The written action item that follows exactly like this.
Can I ask my question now? Sure. I'm a little confused when I look at, I can't tell the date on here, so I don't know what the date is of this
2013.
particular map. I know you said 2013, you said you're working off of it, but I'm just somewhat confused because we just went through some things with some rezoning and the special use permit. And this is the first time I've ever really seen C1A or C2A on the map.
Great question.
So where did those just come from? Because they
They've
weren't
been
there before.
They've been on that.
They're
map.
not utilized as much.
So they've just
C3
never
and
been really
C2A
listed
are
so
more
much, or?
specific. And not everyone falls in. So those are kind of like you have C1.
Right.
C1A breaks it down to even more specific.
yeah, here's the whole list I have, schedule of districts.
Right, but I
You
I
don't
remember
have a lot
getting
of
going
people.
through
Yeah,
that before that
actually,
it was never brought up in the
too.
past on the other,
If
so I was like,
You don't
okay,
have
what
a
is?
lot of people.
Yeah, if you ever want some, like a tutorial on it, I'm more than happy.
Well, I mean, I understand them.
Yeah.
I understand it completely. I just don't remember ever seeing it on the deal or being requested to be used. I see O, C1, C2, but not the C1A or C2A or B.
Those are more specific and we don't have a lot of people. go.
Okay, thank you for that. That's all I'm asking. Okay, thank you.
I feel weird answering. these.
No,
You know?
I was happy that you come in.
So what we're discussing here is removing the city council member ability to.
And the planning.
And the planning, and so that it's also planning.
That it, for it to be non-contiguous. Only my main concern is because we don't have our, like, how are you gonna make an educated decision without our zoning map can
Right.
right and updated, and then having a comprehensive plan. And then that's how a commission makes an educated decision, is this in line with our future plan for the city of Alpine? And right now, we don't, it's like we're chasing after a carriage.
Until we get
Right
that,
now,
until we
we
get that
currently
map.
have 3 spot zoning requests pending. The
Yeah.
first one will be considered tonight. We have 2 more.
Yeah,
coming.
they're gonna keep
So
coming, and
I think whatever y'all do decide will set a precedence on how to handle these issues going
Handle
forward.
spot zoning request.
I mean, my thought would be that moving with her working on the map, okay, until we can get our hands on an updated one, would it not be, you were talking about earlier that we need to really sit down and make a comprehensive plan. Should we sort of wait, table stuff until we get that, and then we can sit down and look at it and make that plan and make a decision on it? Would that take too long? But I mean, it seems to me like something we need to do.
Well, I actually think here, since spot zoning is basically frowned on.
yeah.
I mean, I think spot zoning should go away.
That we
but I'm
just
talking
need to
about
have that
just
go
the
away
thing
for
is-
both city council and planning and zoning. A
We can
request
do it.
comes in and we look
We
at
can
it as
get-
a, but as a spot zoning request. But it's not something that we can initiate or the city council can initiate.
So,
Right,
but
exactly.
just to be clear, but the property owner can initiate it.
No.
If it's
No.
They can request
contiguous,
it.
and if you keep it contiguous, and rezoning would only happen if it was contiguous. Not if it was not, because our ordinance states that it can be non-contiguous rezoning with the either planning and zoning or council to allow, to pretty much offer it as an application for something like that.
Okay, all right.
And so if we remove that option so that because that's what's gonna cause more spot zoning, we're gonna have all these spot zones
Mhm.
and it's gonna get away from us. So if we remove that option and we only had it, so a rezoning can only happen if it's contiguous. Then that would protect the
That takes away
spot
spot
zoning
zoning.
from happening and just being littered with, we're gonna have
Mhm.
so many of them. It's just, I mean, it's gonna be a big mess.
Yep.
Agree.
Okay, Councilman Rodriguez, I see your hand up. You want to come to the podium?
Chris Rodriguez, Ward 2, and I have a question, Jessica. Would this help since council is able to go and put in an ordinance to add what can be also, to add something that can be done in that zoning, particularly zoning, just like we did with Terrebonne? It was zoned for a specific thing. But then we went in and changed what could be included in that zoning.
So that would be a different option. So what you're requesting
Well, what I'm
is,
saying is, even if we took that out, council is still able to go and put in an ordinance and say, well, I'm gonna add that this zoning can have a barber shop.
adjusting a special use conditional use permit and what it's allowable is different than spot zoning.
No, I know that, but what you're trying to get to the end result. It's
Yeah.
still gonna, in essence, going to be like a spot zone, because council is still able to come in and allow a beauty shop in a residential area.
I mean, my personal opinion on how that happened is different. But I also would say that, yes, the council does have a lot of power in what they can allow in a certain zone. So if you have a spot zone, like, if you remove spot zoning from it being allowed by city council, yes, city council could say, hey, let's change this so they can get a special use permit, so they can have a dog boarding kennel, or they can have a mechanic shop in an R1. You can do that, but it will affect the long-term growth of Alpine. That's your decision as a council member. Is
But
that what you
also,
want to see?
when
I don't
that
know.
business closes, that
They have
special
to
use
go back
permit
to
is gone.
It's seasons,
reapply for
yeah.
special
It's
use.
just for that
Yeah.
particular.
Right, okay.
And those
then we need to
special
keep in
use
mind that
permits have
Alpine was
been
not
something
built-
that had been around for a long time. It's just that beauty shops and barber shops are excluded.
And Alpine wasn't built with people having a hindsight of economic development. Alpine wasn't planned. They just kind of started and they just added houses, had it, businesses added.
Well,
So-
but isn't it the?
Yeah,
That's pretty
that's the truth for the whole country.
Yeah, so
Right.
that can be taken into consideration, that a lot of these people can't afford to just up and change just because the zoning is gonna be changed. I think we need to.
That goes all over the country.
Yes, and ma'am, I understand that, but I'm saying we need to keep in mind of what we're doing to the citizens at the same time.
We always
Yeah,
do.
but we also have to watch out for spot zoning.
Yep.
Because it looks like the good old boy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's why the state does not.
Does not
Does
allow
not
it
support.
unless.
Okay, Jessica, what are you looking for from planning and zoning
Matt,
on,
She
oh,
wants to talk.
you got another
go
person
ahead.
that's recognized.
looked up.
Wanted to give 2 cents worth here,
Mhm.
maybe 1 cent. My concern with spot zoning is that it's illegal. And even though you can make a exception, I think what the city has to be careful about is being sued. Because you say yes to one and no to another, and now you have probable cause for a lawsuit in the city. And I think it makes your job much more difficult as well. But what makes everyone's job more difficult, right? But I will say that it sounds so intelligent if the planning and zoning could spend their time making that, like, I would be really interested in what. If you took the map of the city and projected it out, what it would be growth. That would be great if I was new to this area, because then I would know where I would want to possibly buy some property. I think it would be a great asset for the city growing.
We should have a current map here soon. Okay, so what are you looking for from planning and zoning?
General consensus.
Just a general
We all want to move
consensus?
forward with that. So we can work on an ordinance to get it presented.
I'm on board with it.
May we go
Make a
through
motion?
the action item?
So right now, it's just the discussion.
Right now,
item
just
regarding the
discussion of the
ordinance.
D.
We will get to the action item, which is related in a way,
But not now.
after the item.
Hey, this needs to be done.
Your turn.
What?
What do you
Yes,
thought?
yes.
I think I support it, but I'd like to see it in action.
Well, the next
Before I
time,
make
what
that
would happen
decision.
is, we get your feedback, we put together an ordinance and we'll have it, for considerate, or,
Okay, all right.
It's
you know,
an
That's an
open
act-
meeting
that's
that
an
we
act-
can all sit down and sort of.
okay.
Okay, good
like to see
discussion.
that.
All right, and then the next one is also. Jessica, you get to read the line.
Discussion regarding making a proposed recommendation to city council to update to appendix C zoning to the Alpine Code of Ordinances, particularly removing the requirement that. Oh, wait.
No, you're-
That's the next one. You're E.
Yeah,
It's
you're on,
removing-
you're on
Just
E.
kidding. Rewind. I was like, what is this? Okay, threw it away. Okay, sorry.
You're
Discussion regarding making a proposed recommendation to city council to update to appendix C zoning, the Alpine Code of Ordinance, particularly removing the requirement.
No, you're on G.
You're on E now. You want to read
here.
E? Yeah. Appendix C.
E. This is the same thing. Yeah.
I'm following right along with her, and that's what mine.
Discuss proposed amendments to appendix C zoning, article 1, basic ordinance, schedule of districts, section 4A. R4 mobile home district to the Alpine Code of Ordinances, including proposed amendments to improve the availability of affordable housing by amending to provide small housing lots.
So we're talking about
That sounds right.
tiny
I
homes,
didn't
right?
have that on my paper.
We're talking tiny homes.
Not necessarily.
Okay,
Not necessarily. So we've had multiple things come up. I've had a lot of people come in that want tiny homes. And I really don't want necessarily see them all over Alpine. But with the R4 being mobile home district, it's the lowest as far as property value when it comes to, you can put a mobile home there, a manufactured home. And so a lot of people don't want a manufactured home, but they don't need a house that's 1,000 square feet, and that would be a single family residential home. And so I've come across these people that are want to live out here, whether they're nurses or people that just love the outdoors and they want to have a smaller house, and there's just not any of those options for them to build anything out here. And so tiny houses by code are like really small. They're like 200 square feet.
400,
Like, yeah.
400 or less, I think.
Yeah, it's a very small, so it would be considered small housing. I wouldn't consider it tiny housing. I put the costs. The city of Cost has their ordinance and kind of like a little bit of what they're doing. And I didn't have a lot of time to look at other ordinances, but there's other cities in the state of Texas and others, like obviously bigger cities, like Seattle and New York, that have small housing options. But living out here, I've noticed that a lot of people complain on what they can't do with their land. And if you can have a zone where they could do a little bit more with it and have a little bit more variety. R4 is the only one that offers like, they call it, like, you can put Connex houses there,
Container
the
houses.
container houses, but it has to go through planning and zoning. And we've never had anybody put in any requests, but you have to have a minimum of 1,000 square feet or 850 square feet for a mobile home or manufactured home to be put in there. And so I had spoke to a couple contractors and people that are in the community that they're like, it'd be really nice if we could offer something a little bit smaller to people that don't need that much space. And so it's just an idea. I would like it implemented into the R4 because R4 I think is the best place for residential for that to be put in there, other than obviously the apartment district, which apartment district would mean that you'd have to own a lot of land and put a lot of little houses, and it would be more like a subdivision, yeah, and that's not necessarily what people are looking for. But for me personally, if I had R4 land, I would prefer to build a house between 500 and 1,000 square feet than something than putting a mobile home there. For me personally, but it would be from the ground up. Like, it would have to have the same, it wouldn't be on wheels or anything like that. It would have to be a little house.
Be tied in with the city
Yeah,
infrastructure.
the ordinance would support all of that. And that's just kind of my idea is, I live in a little house. It's actually somebody's casita that's on the backside of their house. And it's about 500 square feet and I love it. And I'd love to own something that size or something maybe a little bit bigger, but I don't need 1,000.
And right now, we can't do that. We can't
No,
build
the
a-
smallest square footage for a home for R1,
It's
it has to be,
800.
is 1,000 square feet.
Oh, I thought it was 800.
And for an R4, it's 850
Okay.
square feet. For a mobile home, you can't put in R4, it has to be a manufactured home that you put in at 850 square feet. So if you're gonna build an R1 and an R4, it has to be 1,000 square feet. So it kind of puts people in a, in a bind of what they can build in,
I mean-
for single people or people that are a couple or
So
somebody
would
that
you-
doesn't
what
want.
would your recommendation be, just to amend the R4 to
I would
reduce that
include
square
small
footage?
housing
Yeah, something
options.
of that
for the
nature.
R4. Yeah, and the housing options
don't-
would be clear on what was allowable. So
See-
you'd have to be on a foundation. It would have to, we would make it very clear what we want to see for that, it wouldn't be, you could be even if you wanted to allow
You
the.
should make it
the
an
menu-
R4A.
Well, there's a
I'm
lot of
saying.
options, like if you look at the C1A, even they have different brackets, so depending on what you're building, you go off of that
Cause
bracket.
I agree with what you're
Yeah.
saying in retrospect, that I think I could see a community and
Yeah.
a developer coming in and just going crazy with, if you bought some
Going for
property
more
and
housing.
it was zoned, but my first concern would be somebody would move in one of those containers with wheels or a mobile home, because it would allow that in there as well.
But they're already
And so
allowed
you
in that
got-
area.
Right,
Yeah.
which is why I would say, if you want to do something for smaller homes, maybe we need to give it its own little place. Because I would be concerned that if I went and, well, even now, we were having this discussion earlier, that if you're in a neighborhood like over on Sol Ross or something like that, and you're not really supposed to move a mobile home in there, right? Because it's restricted from that. So if you put an R4 and you do a lot of these little tiny houses, permanent type, lower, square footage, which I could see totally being popular, why I wouldn't want it to have that option that somebody could put something with wheels on it in there.
But right
That's-
now.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Right now,
what I'm saying.
I live just a couple of blocks away and I have a nice yard and I have 1,000 square foot home. It would not be allowed for me to knock that house down and build a 600 square foot home.
I don't think you're R4.
You could put a casino
Not
behind
a
it as long as you.
Yeah, you're R1, R2, or R3, it would not be allowable. It'd only be allowable in the R4,
Only
which would be mobile home district.
Because I like little homes.
I do too, but I also don't want to see a home with tiny houses. I would like them to be real estate.
Yeah, yeah.
And they'd be just as good and as they'd probably cost as much as a manufactured home when you're said and done with it, and it'd be worth more on the ground than
And it
a
would be
manufactured
tied
home,
up
say,
to
we
the
create and-
city water and city
Yeah,
septic
it'd
and
be,
all that.
have the same codes, same
Okay.
i-
Like a little
inspections. Yeah, it'd have to
community
meet
type
all the building
situation where
codes.
that'd be great for a developer to come in and do
Right.
that, and then do a little homeowner.
I wanted, yeah. sorry.
Kind of where you have the homeowners,
Mhm.
what is it called when you have a homeowner?
Association.
Thank you, a homeowners
HOA.
association, HOA, where they come in and they don't, you have certain things that they can or can't do within that.
There is There is a gentleman that I was speaking directly to that he works with Sul Ross State University, and he has some college kids that are doing actual study, breaking down the statistics on how
Oh,
small
gosh, that would
housing
be fun,
benefits
too.
communities. And I was hoping to maybe, if you guys were interested in furthering this discussion, possibly putting it on the next agenda, and I could invite him and have a presentation from this, because they're doing a whole study on it.
I think that would be
Yeah,
fascinating.
just
I'd
kind of
like
get
to
an
hear
idea
about
of what
that.
they're thinking about too, and
Mhm.
and how it benefits other communities, because I think in order for us to see more affordable housing in Alpine, we have to adjust a little bit, and I think that's probably the.
That would
best.
attract more people here
Yeah.
because you have more affordable and smaller. square
I get a
footage,
lot
and
of
that's
people
what
that
they need.
they're like, I can't build anything here, and
And
they're just.
take a look if you get a chance, and we can look too. I saw a whole tiny home community in Laramie, Wyoming, which was so, I mean, those houses were 400 square foot, maybe 500. But it was more of a retirement community, it seemed like, but wonderful little homes, all pretty, I mean, brand new, and they were all permanently mounted. Some of them were containers that were put in with, with porches, kind of like the one south of town here, and they were tied in with the city. So I really like the fact that we should be increasing the opportunity availability of that kind of stuff.
Home
for
ownership in the
homeownership
area
for
to
people.
be able to do something.
Can you
like that.
designate
keep it as
just an area
residential.
with houses?
It would be the R4, so anywhere you could put a mobile home inside city limits would be small housing.
Yeah,
But
I
you
said-
said there's nobody has applied for that.
So it's
One
the
of those
light green on your
spots
map.
that you can have, can you say, okay, now this area
Yeah.
will be designated just for those new houses because we don't have any yet.
So
Can you start something from zero from the beginning, this area?
A
will be-
development,
Well,
that's what she's saying.
Come in, once
You have to find.
once we offer that option to a developer, if they have R4 land, they can build it however they want.
I think people will push it.
But if they put
Yeah,
a
that makes it really
homeowners
complicated.
association on it, then they could restrict the mobile home from going in there. if they wanted to.
but that's almost a four-letter word in most homeowners.
Well, no, if you're in a little community like that, I would welcome that.
I think there's a small home or tiny home community near Coleman.
There is
Oh,
one if you
Texas.
go,
I
would-
one in out.
What?
isn't it on the way toward Trillinga, like going out, there's one there on the left
Seventh
somewhere.
and Gallego in 2014, the city council approved six originally. 4 were built 400 square foot or smaller homes.
But
So
that's
the-
more of a one person owns it, right?
One person owns it, but they rent out all of them. And it's actually a property you've probably cited multiple times for.
Is it R3 though, right? It's considered apartment district?
I'd have to go back through the permit
I
and
think
see
it's a-
how it, but we
Yeah.
do have tiny homes in it.
So the wheels is how you're
I've
gonna
seen the
keep
tiny
motor
homes.
coaches and things like that out, right? Travel trailers, motor coaches.
So manufactured homes are already allowed in the R4 at 850 square feet.
Right.
Depending on what you want to see with the small housing options, you can go smaller for a man, you can change the square footage of a manufactured home so they can have a small manufactured home on their property, or we can be more strict on what you want. This is just an idea of what you want to see. And this is a problem that I've heard from other people that either are trying to buy land to build something, or builders that are like, I want to build more affordable housing for Alpine, and
I'd
you
like
know.
to hear the discussion that Sol Ross has
Yeah.
on, in their
Yeah.
notes and
We
things. I
also
would really
take
like
into
to see that.
consideration Lot size.
So
So currently
weight.
it'd be one house per so many square feet.
Yeah.
So you'd also have to reduce the lot size to allow for multiple.
Well, that's why I said it's almost like it's a R4A, something all in its own little world there, if you know what I'm talking about.
I'd like to see.
Then you could
the-
write it
the,
out, but
yeah, I can mock up an idea of what.
I'd like to see the idea that you come up with.
And then have.
That is a good idea.
have
So-
somebody
I
come
do
up
think
with
it's a
it.
great idea.
So I say go with it, and let's see what you come up with.
Yeah.
See what
Thank you.
happens.
And I would say that the city of Austin, in the older neighborhoods where they have alleys and they have bigger properties, city of Austin passed ordinances that allow the homeowners to sell a back portion of their property for a tiny home. So I don't know if you want to look in there. but-
Well,
The only problem we have with, I don't know.
you don't want to start like spotting them all over the place, because then they have.
No,
they
no,
have
I'm
to
not
spot-
suggesting people's backyards. I'm just saying,
You can have an ADU.
But you also have so when you look at your ordinances, you have lot sizes as well. So the lot size determines the square footage of your home, determines parking, determines fencing, determines backyard, front
Right.
yard, that spacing. So if you're gonna allow for someone to come in with tiny homes, you have to take the lot size and also consider, if my lot is, 8,000 square feet, are you gonna allow me to put 5 tiny homes on it?
Well,
It would follow the, yeah,
again-
so you'd have impervious coverage, so how much coverage you have, the setbacks would have. to
what I
go
want to hear, that's why I
We
want to
can
hear the
make-
study.
we can
that's
make a
the lot
decision if
you're
you can
gonna
only
put
have
into it,
2
so you can
per
really break
lot.
it down.
I mean, we don't necessarily need to change the lot size, but I think that having your rules definitely and making sure that they're all there before we.
And I'm thinking a community, not like, okay, like, not like all over town, you know what I mean? And people are just popping these suckers up in
You
their
have one
backyard.
contractor right now who wants us to do that.
Yeah.
And I could see that, but let's see, how much land does he have? And so what does the Sol Ross study show as far as lot size? And
There's all-
so how, there you go, and that's how you roll it out, I think. Or I'd like to see it,
Yeah.
just to see what they
There's
have.
3 really cute ones that I don't know how they got put in because I don't follow any rules. On South Harrison. On South Harrison Street, there's 3 on one lot. I don't know how they ever happened.
They're
to be put.
permanent.
Yeah, but they don't meet any of the square footage requirements. I don't know how they were put there, but they're cute. And they're very cute and I would live in one. So it's like, get an idea of what they could look like and what our standards would look like,
Well,
because we can put that in the ordinance.
I know they have either 3 or 4 of them behind the, was it
That's
the
a commercial property.
Vitex? It's considered a commercial property, so that's why they did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
They're
that-
all throughout town.
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, there's one right by the elementary school, there's.
But are they here
Harrison.
legally and
No,
can
they're
somebody replicate what?
Right.
Based on our ordinances, can they replicate that and can they do that?
Which is why we need to work on all of the cleanup and the zoning and stuff, which, but I
But if
still
you're
think it's a
gonna
great
look at
idea.
Affordable housing, you're gonna go that direction. If you regulate it to R4, you're regulating it to just a very specific group of houses.
Yes.
Exactly, which is what, I don't want them all over town. I wouldn't mind having them in certain communities.
That's why I said,
Only be in our.
it'd only be
Yeah.
R4.
Uh-huh.
I'd like to speak on this. I'm actually very passionate about this. I've stayed in at least 5 small house communities, and when I vacation, I try to always rent them.
Thank you, Megan.
So I've been between 200 feet and 600 feet, nothing more than 600 feet ever on these small things. They're built so high tech and they really spend money to do this, but it makes it very affordable, and particularly to the young people that have to leave the community here or live in an apartment to live here, and that really concerns me. And the older population really concerns me. But I want you to, when you're putting your mind around this, I'm not gonna sit and point out all the small houses I know about in town, but they're all over. They're already all over. So I want you not to think limited, that you want to build a small house, but you can only build this in this part of town. Cause I think you'll be, can shoot yourself in your own foot. There are a lot of professional people that work with the hospital that would love to, and there are people that would like to come here to live and vacation here. And they pay their taxes and they keep those things up. You're not gonna be writing, I've never seen a small little house falling down. They're so small, you have to be so efficient that you don't have a lot of pile up. You're a little bit of a minimalist. So just please consider it, but don't limit it to R4. Yay for R4, but anyway, that's just a thought.
All right, any more comments on that? I really like it.
Yeah.
I would
Good
kind
idea.
of
We need to
support
move
it.
forward
So
with it, yeah.
I think it's time to move forward to that. Okay, and then our last action item. View, you've been awful quiet. Would you like to read this one?
Action item A is approve a recommendation to the city council regarding rezone 2024-03-01. A rezoning application to allow the applicant Ruben Lozoya to establish a recognized mobile home park on the subject property. The property in question is located at 708 South Cactus Street and is legally described as 1.52 acres, more or less, being the south part of a 3.0 acre tract of land described as the south 3 acres of the west half of Block 2 in Volume 36, page 410, official public records, Means Addition Subdivision A to the city of Alpine, Brewster County, Texas, as per plat on file in envelope number 63, map plat records on file in the office of the county clerk of Brewster County, Texas. The property ID of the subject property is 11311. The record property owner is Ruben Lasoya. The current zoning of the property is R4 Mobile Home District. The zoning classification, if the rezoning is approved, will be C1A Neighborhood Commercial District.
Okay, thank you. Who on planning and zoning drove out there to look at it? You take a
Remember,
look
we
at
have
it?
to have a motion. and a
Oh,
second.
a motion to discuss,
To approve.
motion to approve?
I second.
Okay, got two motions,
Okay.
so now we can discuss it. So. I went out there to go look at it. Did you look at it?
I actually got on Google Maps and did a satellite view of the
Did
property.
I went and took a couple of photos for,
you go look at the property?
No, I didn't.
I tried my best to do a panoramic photo for you guys.
Yes, so that's the entrance to the property right there,
Yes, that's just the entrance.
and it's already mobile homes.
Yes,
So
yeah, the satellite showed the same thing. There's
there's room for one more mobile home, it looked like. Did you see that? If
Um,
possible, but it didn't look very, I have more pictures on my phone.
Well, I mean, we went and looked at it.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so enlighten me one more time on exactly what C1A allows for, please, since it's
Yeah, I
something
have
that
it.
just hit me in the face. I'm like, where did that come from?
B1A is commercial, neighborhood commercial district, and it is one of the only, it is the only zone that allows either a manufactured housing park or an RV park. It's the only zone that's allowable. It's yellow on your map.
Okay. And that's a mobile home district is not what it already is?
No, R4 is it is R4. It is.
Right.
It's already our.
It's R4, so R4 is one mobile home per lot.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and so it doesn't come, it's a non-conforming lot, so it exists as it is. As a multiple manufactured homes on one piece of property, but because it's non-conforming, technically we don't, from our side of the buildings services department, we don't want it to exist because we don't want to encourage its growth, in other words. So once one trailer gets removed or mobile home gets removed, they cannot put another one back until they get it set up to an R4 standard, which would be replatting it to one mobile home per lot, pretty much.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We went and looked at it, and those mobile homes are having forever there.
Yeah.
Why now they are applying for that if they're always having there, so it was not approved to do that?
It's grandfathered in. I don't know how long they've been there. And they're not registered with the city. So with the C1A
Yeah, my
also,
question is, it's been there, how come they didn't request way back before?
Why is it just now happening?
I'm not sure. You might know.
And then that,
Can't you gotta get
that-
closer?
Yeah.
Mr. Rodriguez, Ward 2, and I initiated this for Mr. Lozoya. Back in 2017, he purchased what he purchased was the Cactus Cove Trailer Park. At the time, there was no, C1 was not being used for mobile homes. You're gonna find that here in Alpine right now, we have numerous mobile home parks that are not able to function as a mobile home park when trailers are being removed because they're not zoned properly. So he did purchase a mobile home park, which had 12 mobile homes at that time. He does not want to fill it with 12 mobile homes. Since then, he's updated water lines, replaced the sewer pipes. When he did that is when he was informed that new mobile homes will not be allowed to be placed in his property. He spent quite a bit of money on replacing all that. He has done everything to be in compliance with everything from water to sewer lines. To dumping trash, to cleaning out the area. He's planted more than 12 trees, is in the process of putting a park area for his tenants. There is other mobile homes that are there right now, including an STR, which was approved and is currently paying hot taxes. But what Ms. Olivas brought up is that at that point in time, they weren't using the C1. So when he went to buy it, he was buying a mobile home park.
but he still wants to use it as a mobile home park.
Yes, but it's not going to be 12 mobile homes.
But he can't move more mobile homes on it until it gets reclassified.
But it makes no sense to reclassify it.
Well,
It's
well, he has
already-
to if he wants to move in new. He's getting rid of the ones that are, there are some of y'all have gone by, some that were in pretty bad
Pretty
shape.
bad shape.
Yeah.
Yep.
He has remodeled the ones that were able to be remodeled, that were able to be saved. And he's in the process of trying to weed out the people that have a lease. Once they do leave, those trailers will be removed. Well, he can't do that and place another one without it being rezoned.
I don't understand why it would have to be rezoned to commercial. It's not commercial, it's mobile home. And it's
Well,
still
but
gonna be
that-
mobile home.
According to our
Jessica's
building,
saying-
like she said a minute ago, C1 is the only one that will allow a mobile home park.
The R4 only allows for one mobile home,
Yeah.
period.
That goes by the lot size.
Yes.
So he has an acre, he has as many trailers as he can reasonably fit. Under C1, that's a mobile home park. Under R4 and other, they have to have one mobile home per certain size lot. So it's not how many acres or how much he has,
He
it's
can't.
literally. per
So he has
lot.
too many mobile homes on there for it to be R4.
Yes,
Yes.
but they're grandfathered in.
So right now they're
They're
grandfathered.
grandfathered in because he purchased them the way they are on that property and they're grandfathered in, so they can exist until he touches them. So when he removes one, he cannot put one back in without it complying with R4, which would mean he'd have to replat it and turn it into R4, which would be that meet the, like a, what is the word for it? A legal lot of record. So it'd have to be actually 50 feet by 100 feet, or whatever meets the requirements for square footage. And so then he can put a mobile home on that lot with R4, but because he wants to keep it as a manufactured
mobile home.
park,
No.
it doesn't meet that zone requirement, because it's an R4. And he
Is
wants-
this the first time that it's being presented to the planning? and
Yes,
zoning?
yes, ma'am. Like I said, he was under
Because
the
we
impression,
used to receive it in the 23.
I'm sorry?
They said that this application was received in 23.
It's stamped 2023.
So what is the first time that is being presented to the
The
board?
the application that I just put in, it's dated 2/21/24.
Yes. It was received then.
And
He
we're
just,
gonna
he
do-
stamped it a little late, but it was received
Oh,
in
he put
February.
the wrong.
And I wanted to also comment that by ordinance.
Okay, it's just a mistake because it said 23, okay, it's
Yeah.
24, okay,
Yeah.
that's, yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was my question. How come?
I
It took
see.
8 years to present.
I just wanted to clarify that by ordinance, the grandfather status. It says that we're not supposed to encourage the survival or allow it to take place.
Move
Other
forward.
than what's already there. So that's set by ordinance as well, and I can read that to you all if you want.
And we also have the same issue right now with another property inside city limits, that they want to sell it as a mobile park, but it's not identified as one. And it cannot exist at one until it comes up to code. I mean, this isn't the first one that we've dealt with. And it's not zoned for one as either, so it's.
I do want to note that with rents the way they are in Alpine, real estate is sky high. Some people, their only chance of having a home is a mobile home. A lot of them do not own the land to put it on, so a lot of them do rely on having a mobile home park. Alpine has pretty steadily had mobile home parks that have been in existence. And this would be basically be doing away with all mobile farms within the cities, all mobile home parks
So-
within the city of Alpine.
Go ahead, guys.
Why not
So I'm-
replat? Isn't that the option is to replat it and that way the zone doesn't have to be changed and it doesn't have the
It's still
appearance
originally.
itself of a spot zoning? Why not just replat it?
But if you replat, there's a lot of land that you're talking about that's going to be wasted.
There's.
There's-
I'm reading the little requirements on.
So
that's
my
what I was
question that I
trying to
wanted
figure
to ask is, senior moment now.
out. Been there.
Okay, well, I'll jump in.
Um,
This seems to be spot zoning to me,
Well, it is.
It is fun.
It is spot zoning.
and that's not allowed. Plain and
No,
simple.
you keep,
It's a
you-
benefit to the-
it's a benefit to the community. There
If
are
it's
no trailer
correcting
parks and there are
something
people
that-
that are in need of affordable housing. Which they can't afford to go buy a new home. They can afford to go buy property to put a mobile home in.
So my question was about the surround, so did we do a 200-foot notice to all the surrounding property owners? Did we get any feedback from any of no one even responded? So,
And the ones that aren't, he did contact the neighbors, Rhonda Cole, a few others that are there, and they had no issues with it being a trailer park. Keep in mind, it's 12, but he does not intend to use it for that big of a park. He feels that placing them that close is a fire hazard. So he does not have an intention of filling it back up with 12.
Right. But it is what it is right now, and I understand it's grandfathered, and I also understand 40 years ago, this was the wild, wild west. And lots of shit happened.
But do we not meet the requirements of the questions that Megan said that we must ask ourselves and whether it's going to be for the benefit of the community?
And if it's rezoned C1A, what else can come in there?
Well, and that's what I'm reading right here. Go ahead.
You would have to follow the requirements anyways. I don't know how large the property is. It just says 1.5 acres, but you would have to follow the requirements other than the ones that are already existing as grandfathered in. So the ones that are sitting on the property, it'd be based off square footage. He would have to have them spaced properly. He probably wouldn't be able to get 12 on there, even if he wanted to. It probably had 12 originally and they weren't supposed to be. It's like
No.
Frontier Village. They're all super close and they're all against code. It's a huge fire hazard.
No,
So-
and if he gets a C1, he has every intention of complying with.
Jessica, please continue.
Oh, that's fine. I don't have much more to say.
What about utilities? Do we have separate meters? Isn't that required for,
For every house?
For every dwelling, yes.
we do?
Yes, it was a mobile home park prior to this. It has been.
So it's not
a
like
mobile home
Frontier
for
Village
20.
where there's just one.
No, Frontier Village has a meter for each mobile home.
Okay.
Does this-
Can we approve this with the specification that it will be just for trailers, not in the future want to put another store there?
Because there's all sorts of.
C1A has a whole list
whole list of stuff.
of retail. In fact, it calls for barber or beauty shops, and I'm
Yeah,
like, why do we
building
know?
Well, we did.
We did. That's exactly where we added it. Right.
Yeah. Oh, no, we did.
We've been working like that all this
permit
time. Why not just
for
approve it?
residential
Yeah, yeah.
for that one.
We didn't want to change it to the.
The way it is now, it's considered legal because it's grandfathered in. So who's living there and how it's operating now, it can exist. He can have what's there right now, which he has the rentals and.
And he can
and-
add mobile homes
And
to
he
it.
can't add anything to it and he can't, if you remove something, he can't add something back in.
Oh, in R4, but I'm talking with with the new zoning.
If he rezoned it, then he would be able to put more mobile homes in. But right now, the way it exists with however many are there, I'm not quite sure how many are there.
Okay,
right now.
so I'm reading the difference between R4 and C1A, right? You're talking a 6,000 square feet lot size for C1A versus, 7,000 square foot lot size for C1A versus 6,000 for R4. I mean, there's not that much difference, and you got
But
50
but on the
foot,
R4, you're only able to put one trailer.
right? I get what you're
Unless you
saying.
replat it, no.
Yeah. And I'm just saying there's not a lot of difference.
You need more room if you're gonna go a
Get out
C1A.
laundry.
You gotta go
He needs
more room.
he needs 1 acre minimum, and that's what C1A. So each manufactured home park in C1A district shall be subject to the following site development regulations. Site area has to be a 1 acre minimum, which on the application shows he has 1.5 acres. I don't know exactly how many it is, but
Well,
Um,
it's
so
1.5
he does-
acres on the south side. There's another 1.5 acres that I guess is contiguous. What, you said family, it's almost all family. What are the plans for the other 1.5 acres?
Well, we get all
Mr.
these
Square,
out.
is it you that has the other land on there, or is it Daryl?
It's under his name.
It's under whose name?
My son.
No, but there, the other land that's there, other than the 1.5 acres that we're discussing. The other land, whose is it? Like where Daryl lives, who owns that land?
Next to him.
On the south side.
Where Daryl lives, who owns that land?
Where it is,
Uh-huh.
he's.
Okay. So that is his home, it's a mobile home, and I assume plans on living there, I mean, he has made it his home.
Not in local home, it's up there.
Prefab, okay, excuse me.
But for C1A, you'll be even more limited on the number of mobile homes. You can only put one in there.
No, C1 would allow him to add, R4 won't allow him.
He can't upgrade his current property because we won't allow him to bring new ones in. So the mobile homes that are falling apart will stay there. Because we won't allow him to bring more.
He's trying to get it
Unless he
rezoned so
replats
he
it.
can clean
Yeah.
up the property and add more mobile homes to it. which
He's
is
trying to
what we
add
do.
newer, newer mobile
Right.
homes, make it
Of
look
course,
like.
then you can add all sorts of other
I mean, the
businesses in
difference
too,
is 8 feet.
right?
If we're building the ones that are already there.
Now, you gonna build any other, there's a lot of businesses that could come in there, that you could build there.
To me, it makes more sense to replat and to amend the R4 mobile home district maybe. To allow for,
So it could be replatted and he could bring more mobile homes in if he replatted it, or he could have one or. So the ones that are falling down and are dilapidated, is it correct?
Do that because I don't think you should.
It'd become a subdivision. I mean, the thing is the difference between the C1A lot size is he has to have 42 feet width for each space for that trailer to comply with the
that's what I was
ordinance.
looking at.
And a lot size is a minimum of 50 feet.
Right.
So it's
Yep.
8 feet difference. So if he replatted it, he would have to make 50 feet width. And so, I mean, technically he needs almost the same amount of space per mobile home to replat it than if he was gonna have a manufactured park in there.
You also have to redo all of his plumbing and lines.
Yes, because depending on how you plat it, whether you're platting this way or platting that way.
They're
the
already
mobile-
there. He's just wanting to update them, but we won't let.
But if
Until
they're
we
there and the
change
spacing
it.
isn't correct, he can't put it there. He has to have.
There's
Proper
only
spacing.
one.
And that's what started all of this, is he moved the trailer out and went to move a new one in and was denied. Because it didn't meet the. So that individual who has that mobile home had to find another place now. He couldn't even move back in or he can't move down. That's what started this whole ball rolling and trying to figure out what was the best way.
What we can do to help that has planning and zoning, the city council, how we can help him to improve and beautify that part of the town.
By
Because
giving
if we
the
keep
zoning
denying
C1A.
it, you know, it will stay like that with those old trailers and they need
Yeah.
help.
There's, yeah, I can't give you any answers. It's not my opinion, but there are two options. You can rezone it or you can replat it.
And if you don't
replatting
rezone, you're
is-
basically telling the city of Alpine that mobile home parks cannot exist.
That's not necessarily.
No, I
Well-
wouldn't say that's
well,
the truth, but it would give him
We
options
can't
to.
plot. And
upgrade
the ones that we have already
Wouldn't be able to change.
wouldn't be able to change. We
No.
don't have any too much area that's already C1. We know that because I had initially we had initially talked and we were not going to do this. We were going to take the time. I think you were in on one, Andrew was in on the meeting, that we were gonna take the time and instead of just changing this one and rezoning this one property, we were gonna look at what was going to be best for the city of Alpine as a whole. Where could we put mobile home parks? Megan had said maybe down on the south side of town. That was the original plan. That was changed when I decided that I was not gonna seek re-election and he needed help in getting this done. I mean, we can do that and you can say, you know, go, but there is not much, I mean, other than doing what you're a little portion where you're gonna put trailers.
Now, I'm not one to jump out and change something from a residential whatever to a commercial. I'm not a fan of doing that, but I'm also listening. And I think he got into the R4 and then, of course, the zoning, whatever our rules and guidelines and everything changed or were never really specified for him. I see so what I'm saying is C1A would allow him to do the things to bring in another mobile home or two and to take out the ones that are in disrepair, which we talked about today at the back end of the building there, and bring that up to sort of an Alpine standard, which he's not able to do right now unless he replats it. And so to me, that's not spot zoning, that's doing what you said and really looking at what's best for the community and the people And to be perfectly honest, I understand why it's gotta go this way.
I know, because.
I'm
he
not a
was in
fan of
trouble,
it, but I
we're not
understand
allowed
why.
it. He's trying to follow our rule, but what is stopping him? So they cannot improve, so how we can help him?
We have to rezone it for him.
And
That's-
so if it gets
that's what we choose
rezoned to
do.
C1A, then that opens a lot of other options too, right?
Yeah.
So
You
you
know, the
could,
same problem, yeah.
It's gonna open up the options, but they'd have to move those trailers out to
Right.
be able to do that.
and looking at that location,
I don't know that would be beneficial.
I
to
don't
put
think
any of
that's
those
gonna
things
be
there.
a main commercial district of ours.
I don't
No, I
think
don't think so.
I don't think so.
So you don't have all the parties present today because they are family. You have to understand that our chief of police lives next door.
Right.
The chief of police is not going to let them do something they shouldn't do. But he didn't want to attend and didn't want to vocalize his because it's a conflict for him.
But
He also
of course,
lives in that area.
yeah, we're looking 50 years down the road,
He's not gonna live there.
so,
So the property across the street, which I noticed were just
County.
open fields.
County.
County, it's county
County.
owned, okay, all right.
yeah, I looked at that.
Subject to
And then
annexation.
There's no other streets, there's just that one street, so really for commercial use, there's nothing.
There's nothing else that could really,
So I think looking at the C1A, other things that could come in. Probably be good.
I think we need to change it for him so he can improve and change.
I don't think there's anything there.
If you can-
No, I don't think so either. I don't think so either. If nothing happens.
Was not.
Yeah, there we go.
And a park.
It's a word to. And next door is county, is not city.
That's
So when he lives in that end of
a
the
couple
city.
blocks
then it's-
past the HUD housing.
Yeah.
down- if you're going
I
south.
guess I would be curious, I
Right up
just
Main Street.
from a building side, I'd be curious on how spaced out the ones that are already existing are, his site plan. Because even with him, even if he wants to keep this as a mobile park, if that's what the end result is. On a building size side, is it safe to even be the way it is right now?
They might be.
It's really
they might
not.
be
He
too-
has
look at- and that's my thing.
Probably too close.
But I mean, just saying safer, it would be to remove it.
Sorry, 708 South Cactus Street. That where the chief lives next to, across the street, those are in Ward 4 because I happen to be knocking on doors. And have been
No,
looking at
there's
their-
no-
There's a field across from it.
Well, some of his neighbors are Gregory and Amanda. And maybe I'm,
You are covering some people that are not in Ward 4, because you were at my house and spoke to my parents, and that's Ward 2.
Yes,
so is the chief in Ward 2?
yes.
So the
Ward
people
2.
right across the street from them are in Ward 4 because I have to.
No,
No, ma'am. Ward 4 is way on the other side of town. You're
Okay,
over
I
there by
must
the
be-
You're in the
cemetery.
wrong area.
Yeah, this is straight south here.
You're on the cemetery, but you have been campaigning over here, but this is Ward 2.
But the maps are a little confusing, but I have a list of people and their names. And the names that have Ward 4 on them, when I knocked on their door, are his neighbors. Are the neighbors there because I drove by, just to be, Ward 2 and Ward 4 are like married and they weave through the community.
that for Ward 2 is start from the Catholic Church over
Yeah.
there.
Can you pull the map? Not all the way to the Catholic Church. Ward 2 ends pretty much over here before
And
before
By the park?
Heavens and all that, over, that's what.
And if you look, if you.
So when I look, I think you should look it up.
We can definitely look it up. If
Yeah,
you want to
okay.
Give me a call tomorrow, we can look into all of that, because.
Okay, let's get back onto the action item here. We had a couple of options. We could table it, so everybody has a chance to go look at it.
If y'all table it, it's still gonna go to city council and you're not gonna make a recommendation.
I think that we should
I'm
approve it.
good with that.
I think-
I would approve it.
The other option is approve a recommendation and have it send it to city council.
But do we
So
approve it as a
the
spot?
motion right now is to approve.
Send
Okay,
it to
the
city
spot
council.
zoning. And if you are in favor of doing that, all you have to do is vote for it. If you want to vote against that zoning for that property, then you would vote against the motion.
Okay,
So the
I-
so has it has, because it is a spot ordinance, my question is, does it pass the litmus test? And there's 4 things that it has to comply with. Are we gonna be legal if we approve it?
I think so, yes.
Okay,
It makes
And I
all
wanna
the
know
sense in
from
the world
building
that you would do
services
that.
side,
Because it's just
What-
our recommendation.
what
The
are the
city council has to take
pitfalls
the last
of-
decision.
Right, yeah.
We're not doing it just to appease somebody. We're doing it because it's something that needs to be done, be corrected.
okay, can I hear from building services?
I. I don't have anything to say. I mean, for me, I don't think it should be rezoned. I think that it should. It should come into compliance with the zone that it has been. I mean, it's been zoned that way for the last decade. As a property owner, when he purchased it, he may not have had all the information, and I feel really sorry for him, but at the same time, for the future growth of Alpine, I believe it should stay R4. And it should
You
be
think he
replatted.
should replat?
He should replat it and he should remove the non-conforming structures. And sometimes when you buy property, you, to make it better, you have to put some money into it. And that's my personal opinion.
And you're setting a precedent.
Well, I'm in favor.
Okay, we're not voting yet, but,
It is legal, for you guys to recommend it. It is legal.
then it's got the infrastructure. And infrastructure is at a short supply around here. We're not gonna go outside the city and add water and sewer so we can add another subdivision anytime soon.
Already done.
It's already there.
Is it sized properly? It's never been registered.
That's why we need to approve it so it can be on legal.
No, she's talking about the water mains, the actual feeds, aren't you?
Yeah, it's never been inspected by us.
Yeah.
Well, if we rezone it, do you get to go out and do an inspection on it?
We can, I mean, if he pulls permits.
If
So
you move
50
new
years
trailers
down the
in-
line.
If he moves new trailers, then he's gonna have to get permits. And Megan's right about that.
So what is the next step? Do we have to make a motion or keep
No,
discussing?
you would need to vote on the motion.
we already made a vote.
The motion is to approve, so if you want to approve it, you vote in favor, and if you want to vote against it, you vote against it.
Okay,
I'm in favor.
motion to approve.
I'm gonna say one more thing before I give my yay or nay. We had a discussion earlier about people cannot afford housing in Alpine. And yet we want to tell this man to go spend a lot of money to replat so that people can afford housing in Alpine instead of just rezoning it so people can come in there and put a house. I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
I vote no, but it passed.
What's the difference in cost? I'm just curious between replatting and rezoning for the homeowners.
There really is no cost for the rezone. The plating, you would have to literally have a survey come in and replat. And then move the houses accordingly and all those 29 units. Then you have to plat around, you have to have, then you do get into the possible.
Draw out the exact dimensions for every lot and
Doing the map.
And you, Megan,
So it has.
Oh, I don't know. They didn't have.
Yeah.
Already voted. Okay. Any board member comments? Comment? No,
bam.
I have to convert to civilian time. 7:18. Adjourned.
Good deal.
We vote on